Thanks, Tim. All right, thank you so much. You guys should stay here, just saying. You're going to learn a lot of things. So this talk is not necessarily about PlayFab as a whole, but more about live game operation. So I'm going to cover a lot of subjects, a lot of information. So this is a talk that is backed by data. This is a talk that is, I'm going to give you a lot of books to read as well, if you like to. And my goal is that you're more fluent to go ahead with live game operation. So yeah, let's go ahead. There we go. So PlayFab, a year ago, we got acquired by Microsoft, as we just heard. So now we are called Azure PlayFab. So what that is, more or less, is that we continue to be PlayFab as we are, but we also actually gather all the tech from Microsoft and making it publicly available to all of you. So we're growing very strong, and we are super happy to get you, all of you, on board with us to have your LiveOps tools grow. So more or less, let's go dive right away into the subject. So so what you're seeing here is the games with the most revenue and how much time is spent into each of those games and how many sessions there is into each of those games. So as you can see, the games that are in the top 200 has way more game session in a month than the games that are in the group of 200 to 500. And the lower you get, from 500 to 1,000, less session there is in a month, and so on, and so on, and so on. And there's a huge, important KPI that people forget in the gaming industry, which is frequency of play. How many times does your game getting played into a day or into a month? This is a huge indicator. So we talk about retention and all these things, which is great, but frequency of play is way more important. So let's dive a little bit into how you can also increase your frequency of play. So let's talk about habit design. So the whole goal is to have the players want to go to your game pretty much every day. So to do that, they have to create an habit to go and start your game and start to have fun and actually want to do more and more and more. So let's explore how you can do that as well. So the first thing is the emotional trigger inside of your game. You have to tell why they have to do something in your game. You have to explain very well what is that they have to do and why they have to do it. And this will lead right away to a simple action. So the idea of the action is to have an action that is triggered that is easy to complete, right? And then the trigger usually toward the action is a very simple, small reward or a small personal step or a social step that will either invite you to input more information, but more or less it will make you go forward. And then the third step is the variable reward. The variable reward is extremely important. That's where most of the thing happens. This is the moment where you give what the player actually wants. And that is the place where you can also do a lot of segmentation to actually validate that what the player is looking for is actually what makes him come back. And then let's talk a little bit more about the fourth step, which is the investment, which we call time escalation. And as you see here, the investment comes after the reward. Most of the games out there, what they do is the opposite. They give the investment before the reward. This is wrong. This is now how you build habits. If you look at any social platform out there, if you take Facebook, Pinterest, or anything that people do every single day, the reward comes before the time investment. So how do you do that as well? Well, if you look at idle games, right? We just had a super nice talk from Daniel of Colibri about idle games. One key part of idle games is when it is idle, your reward is going up. Your reward is growing and growing and growing and growing. And the time escalation is your investment of time to starting the app or the game and go get your reward, right? The reward in your head is already there. So the investment of time comes after, and that's key. If you look at any Zynga game that were successful back in the Facebook days, it's exactly the same thing. You grow your crops, you do all your things, and then what will make you come back? Your crops are ready, right? You're going back to get your reward because you know it's there. So the time factor of putting investment and putting value inside of your game will make the players come back. And this will create habits. If the player likes this little cycle of emotional trigger, a simple action that is very easy to do, that leads to a reward that will eventually come, but he has it already, this is magic. Essentially, if you look at any games out there, either at social games, if you look at games that has communities, while you're away, your clan is working. What will happen when I come back? What did the clan provide to me? There's this whole social factor that goes into it. This is very important. So let's get to a basic example, which is the safe in Gardenscape. If you're not aware of the safe, it's a really good one. So you see the safe, you click on it, there's nothing, 0 sand, 0 gold. There's some money you can invest into it. And as you play, and as you play, and as you play, the safe's getting filled up. So you've worked a lot to get that safe filled, correct? So you've done already, you have your reward, it's there. It's there, the reward, you've worked for it. Your simple step are already there. Now it's time to make the financial investment to get it. The safe is the one of the, well, I would say in the top 3 converting to payer in all the games out there. You can go all the way back to Club Penguins for kids. It's exactly the same thing. You gather rewards. You cannot spend it until you subscribe. This mental factor of habit is incredible. IKEA effect. You build it, it's worth more. You don't mind spending a little bit of money because you've pushed so much value into it. 2 books, it's going to explain to you all of that. Danny Early, pretty sure some of you know that. Hooked, habit forming. These 2 books together is mentally destroying a lot of people. And I'm serious about it. And people doesn't know it. And this is used in, you know, Weight Watchers, the people that wants to get slim, they follow exactly the same rule. All the things that has subscription and stuff that makes you spend money with time, they all do that. Real world, fake world, it's all the same. So yeah, a game is a business. As we just heard before, you have to make money, otherwise you won't survive, you won't make games anymore, you're going to find it boring all of a sudden. So it's really important to follow these 3 steps of design thinking, make sure that you have something is great, you iterate to make sure you have a product, validate your people, find your channels, and then go to agile way once it's time to scale and go into growth with live ops. One thing that is very important is when you are in the lead startup phase, once you have validated the fun inside of your game, make it dynamic. When I say make it dynamic, it means all your assets, all your text, all your images, all your variable should be able to be edited from outside of the game. Either CMS, whatever, it doesn't matter. You go in there, you change your values, so you don't have to create a new build. You don't have to publish a new game. It's very important. You're going to get where you go with that. And then it's easy also to create A/B testing. It's easier to create segmentation. Follow this cycle. People who do that, as you saw before, go lean. This is the way to do it. It's easy to say. It's easy. Just do that, right? But it's mainly this. So retention, yes, retention is very true. It's very important. You have to be able to know where your players are coming from. You have to know what those group of players, those cohorts that you're bringing to your game, what they like, so you can optimize afterwards. If you don't tag your cohorts, it's going to be very hard to optimize your LTV. because your LTV goes also into your spending. How much time do you spend into a feature? How much spending you're doing into user acquisition? So without knowing these two things, you won't be able to improve. So segmentation on top of that will get you the information required to optimize. So there's a book about that. So emotional drivers, yeah. So this book is fantastic. It's going to get you to the little wording, the little, I would say, input brain per culture as well, not only for Europeans and North Americans. It covers the whole world about how you can get people inside of your game, hook them, and then make them speak for your game in the future. So here's more data. So spenders over 6 months. Little graph. So what that is from the first time they start to play the game over a period of 6 months, the average spent for $1, $100, and over $1,000, which some people qualify as whales. Some people it's more than that. But the most important thing is the percentage of days played. Look at the whales. 74% of the possible days in 6 months. So I mean, it means every, 3 days out of 4, they're going to play the game. And really important thing, the last graph, what that is the first payment. When do they do their first payment? For a good majority, for a good portion of them, it happens after 28 days. So you need minimum content of 3 months, of 4 months, of progression line to get those people to spend. If you target only for the 3 to first 4 weeks, and that's it, you won't be able to validate your cohorts on a long time. So it's very important. You have to get those numbers at the end. That's how you get to grow your team afterwards and make new games. How you do that? So this is a really cool book. So it's used mainly into TV series, but it's getting used more and more into gaming also. Is how to create a live game up event that lasts a week, and how do you want them to follow up for the weeks after, right? So it's all about the progression, how hard it is, how fun it is, how the community is engaging together, and all of this thing creates some energy, and then there's this thing that happened, and then you're like, oh my God, I have to do it again next week. So that's the whole point, and really good book. So optimize, yeah, you have to localize, like sincerely. If you don't localize, you're just wasting your time. When you launch your game, at least make 10 languages. I say on the left, if you reach those 10 languages on the left, which is English, Chinese, South Korean, Japanese, and yada yada, you're going to reach 92% of the spenders worldwide. That's a big number. So you don't know. Maybe your game is very popular in Spain for whatever reason, but your game is not in Spanish. And 50% of the people will only spend in their native language. So even if you have a Spanish guy or girl that speaks English, it might not just spend because it doesn't trigger those emotional input to actually go and do the leap, because it's not in the native language. So do it. Again, it takes too long to go through that, but what I want to say with this is that if you look on the left, it's how many revenue is going per genre, which is like the left side of the column, and then the right side of the column is how much download that happens. And if you go from one country to another, let's pick one, let's say like Japan, the second one over there, you can see there's a huge number of sport games getting download, but there's barely any revenue coming from sport game over there. So the way you have to build your game, obviously, cannot go with in-app purchases with sport game in Japan. It won't work. You have to go with ads or something like this to actually make some money. So it's important to know your culture, to know your market, what people like, before going somewhere. Modify your game, optimize it so that it actually work. Otherwise, your data is just not culturally optimized. So that's funny picture, okay? This is real. This is in a Best Buy shop. It's the exact same cable. It's the HDMI cable, exactly the same thing. Different box, different colors. One is in the TV section. One is in the computer section. All right? People in the TV section wants to spend €1,000 or €800. They don't mind spending $29 on HDMI cable. But somehow people who are buying computers are not ready to spend $29 on HDMI cable. They would rather spend $19. All right? So in the stores that you walk once times a week, this is happening to you. You have to look at it as well. Physical world is optimized as well. If you do it in virtual world, it's fine. You have consumers, they buy on instinct. It's irrational. Do it as well. Those are all elements from left to right that are easy to implement into a game, live ops oriented. So we've heard prior, optimize everything. The blue row on the left is harder to do than the right row that is red. But the key factor of any game is that any of those will not be as good if it's only patched over your game. If you're adding a gacha in your game just because you want to add a gacha, if it's not part of a game loop, if it's not part of your core loop or your metagame at the end, right, it won't work. People won't like it. They're going to see it as, oh, he wants to make some money. Not fun, right? But if you put it into a live events that last a week, and that it's part of the actual game and not something that is just stitched on it, people are going to love it. They won't mind spending on it. So be aware of what you're building and where you're putting it. It's not because it's a clan that it's just going to magically work. There needs to be some intrinsic value to the players. OK, so where are we at? So another thing by design that works very well is VIPs. So VIP is extremely popular in Asia. It's getting more popular here. You probably saw it in some RPG game or some strategy game. VIP, essentially, it's big cash machine. Let's call it like this. Because once you go into a VIP system and you're part of a clan, you have a chat. And usually in most VIP systems, you're going to see which level each of those VIP people are, which goes away into the 7 sins of the perception of the mind, right? So you're going to show that you're wealthy, you're going to show that you're powerful, but not only that, it will also give you more bonuses inside of the game. And VIP system can go very strong. So now in Asia, they are into white glove managers for VIPs, which means that you have some people in your customer support team that will take care of some level of VIPs to make sure that they are happy, right? But not to the level where they just write them an email, answer to customer support ticket. They're going to actually play with them. They're going to spend time with the gamer, like a day of playing, just to make sure they spend more. So that's where we're at. It's really, really deep customer care service, right? So it's the same in casinos. Never forget that. Good books about how to bring clans and people together and to bring new systems. The propaganda one is probably the best book you can read regarding how to make a clan versus another clan just by game mechanics. But yeah, go with this. So let's continue. So if you want to really engage well with your players, you have to go ahead in time and plan what you're doing. So having a calendar of events of everything that's going to happen in the future, and color code if it's a monetization event, if it's a retention event, it's a viral event, and also pondering how hard it is to go through that event, you'll be able to quantify your burn rate. So how how much your players are actually spending so much time or so much money to get what they want at the end of the event. And obviously, localizing per country will obviously trigger more spending. So it's really worth it to go in that direction. And the color breed that we saw just prior had about like 5 minutes just speaking about that, or 10 minutes. And I think that's the way to do it. So they do it very well. Yeah, Risk Society. So another book. Sorry, I'm having a lot of books for you today. But with Risk Society, it's going to actually tell you how to try this 5%, 10%, 20% crowd of testing out how to bring new content, and will the people like it or not. So making your players taste what is coming up is the best to actually go for the large crowd and converting. So here there's a bunch of tips. You can read them. So obviously, for everything that I've just spoke, I could have spent half an hour to just describe all the process through this. But mainly, my goal for you is to do 4 things. Is that you have to find what is your hook model in your game. Second thing, you have to improve your retention. Third thing, you have to optimize to go worldwide. And the fourth thing, you have to optimize your channel of acquisition. That's more or less like the 1, 2, 3, 4 square that you have to build to be successful in the gaming industry today. So PlayFab. More or less, we're going to help you to build all of that. So we have all the gaming services and the live ops services to help you build a beautiful online game. And by any chance, if you want to, if you have any questions, feel free to ask us. We have a little booth here where we can guide you into your live game operation journey. Thank you.